Yeah, look, we're a payments business, so we've got some unique barriers to entry to other businesses, and our primarily focus is on China. So, as you know, China is a communist country. There's currency controls. In fact, they're very strict around who they give licenses to take money in and out of the country. From our understanding, there's roughly 28 of those licenses out there for businesses that want to take money in and out, and we have access to one of those licenses, which is a great achievement in itself. Yeah, so we're trying to do a couple of things with it. The first is very simple. We're in Europe, so most people will understand this. Stripe is a very successful fintech business. We want to do Stripe, but cross-border and into mainland China. So the whole idea behind that product is to open up the Chinese consumer to global businesses. Currently, if you're a consumer in China and you want to buy a product, the easiest way to do it is probably through Alibaba, one of their sites, which is the equivalent of eBay. Or you find a local distributor to sell your product into China. But in both of those instances, you don't really control who's buying your product, how it's being sold, and particularly your price point. So that first product is a super simple acquiring API. Think of it as 10 lines of code that you plug into your website. You change the end of your website to .ch and you can sell direct to the Chinese consumer. Second product we're looking at doing, and this is probably a larger scale play than just looking at China, is, as we all know, SWIFT has had a monopoly on the payments world for a long period of time. And SWIFT's been a really valuable partner for the world opening up for trade, but some of their technology is a little bit outdated, and what we're trying to do is disrupt SWIFT. Now, we don't have the funds, being a fintech, to be able to build our own set of payment rails and build the global reach that they have. They have 11,000 financial institutions plugged in, and they're in every jurisdiction in the world. So what we're trying to do is effectively connect up all of the payment rails that are out there in the world to date, so that we can build a product that has the global reach of SWIFT, but using modern methods that can send money much cheaper and much faster than the current practices of the banks.
So, what implications does this have for maybe European consumers or even Australian consumers?
Yeah, look, I think the rise of China is probably a little bit more prevalent in our part of the world, but certainly I think Europe will see over the next 5 to 10 years a huge influx of not only Chinese tourists but Chinese products and payment methods. And so, products like WeChat, which are 1/3 of China's internet usage, aren't very common. And I've spent the last month over here in Europe, and I'm yet to see a retailer that accepts WeChat as a form of payment. So with roughly 15 million Chinese visitors visiting Europe last year, and only 4% of Chinese nationals having a passport, and that's going to grow exponentially. And one of the things that we want to try and do is bring these Chinese payment methods to Europe and the merchants here.
Those are incredible numbers. How has it been working, in China from an Australian perspective?
Look, so we're very new. We did a seed round. We raised most of that capital with Gobi Partners, which is a VC fund in Hong Kong, backed by Alibaba. And so we used that really to get all of our ducks in a row and effectively get legal. As you know, playing in the fintech space, you've got to make sure that you dot all the I's and cross all the T's before you can get working. And so a lot of that money for us was around hiring the right development team. It was around getting our financial services license in Australia, the equivalent in New Zealand, Hong Kong, Singapore on its way, and these Chinese licenses for currencies. So we're at the early stage of our business. We're looking to launch. We're currently in beta, but we're currently looking to launch in about 3 or 4 weeks and go out to customers with a number of APIs to make their lives easy on the payment front.
Where do you see the payments industry heading? It's quite a broad question, but...
Yeah, look, it's a really interesting question. I think there was probably some initial views globally that you'd see everyone come together using the same payment methods 5 or 10 years ago. What we've seen is now a very fragmented space where there's a lot of businesses opening up and having great success. In Europe, great businesses such as Currency Cloud and TransferWise really changing the game for payments. And we're also seeing the larger players, the established players with their legacy systems, struggling in some regards to keep up. My personal view, and this is based on nothing except my experience, is that we'll see a lot of consolidation in the space, particularly around the larger established players looking to acquire these fintech businesses. after all, they've got all the money and they've got all the customers, so it makes sense for a lot more partnerships to happen in the future and a lot more connections to come about as technology makes it easier to connect different payment platforms.
So can I also ask, early days, but how's this year's MPE been for you?
Look, it's very early days for us. We've got a number of speaking engagements coming up. A lot of the information we've received today is more on the regulatory side, and I think that's an interesting space for, and an interesting topic for a place like this, particularly around the fact that a lot of fintechs and a lot of products that have come out have been around trying to get around the slow and cumbersome regulation that you're seeing in the market. It's the reason why Bitcoin uses blockchain, because they needed a self-regulating mechanism to have a distributed ledger. So it's been interesting to see a lot of people still talking about the regulation coming up as opposed to the disruption in the space, but hopefully we can change that in the next few days.